Hi guys, and welcome back to another Premier League video. Now we're moving on to round 18, nearly at that halfway stage. However, some teams are a bit behind. Spurs, for example, have only played 14 games. That's because of obviously the COVID outbreaks, and I think there's going to be what they're calling a circuit break soon in the league, which just means that for 2 to 3 weeks there'll be a break while teams recover from COVID, in the hope that they come back and everyone's fine. Whether it'll work, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, there are still some games to play. Now in the last round, I got no scores correct. It was out of 7 games as 3 had been postponed, and there were quite a few weird results in there, such as Chelsea not being able to beat Everton. The only 2 results I did get correct were Liverpool winning and Man City winning, which is sort of becoming a theme at the moment, those 2 teams winning and everyone else being a bit inconsistent. So, without further ado, let's move on to my predictions. And starting off with Man United versus Brighton. Now Man U, they've won 3 in a row. The 2 games that Ralph Rangnick has overseen in the league, he's won them both 1-0. Brighton's last game was a 1-0 loss against Wolves, and Brighton tend to draw a lot, so I can't see Brighton winning this, and I think, to be honest, Man U have enough quality and will get the same score that Rangnick's got in his previous 2 games. Man U to win 1-0. So that Man United v Brighton was one of the 5 games that is postponed. However, the next one isn't. It's Villa versus Burnley. And Villa, they're doing quite well. They won their last game 2-0 against Norwich. And of the 6 games that Gerrard has played, he has won 4 of them. The 2 that he lost were against Man City and Liverpool. So he's doing a good job. He's beating everyone that's, sort of bottom half of the table or mid-table sort of teams. He's beating them. So fair play to him. Burnley, they drew their last game against West Ham. It was a 0-0, but they haven't scored in 3 games. So I think this game is really going to suit Villa, and I see Villa winning 2-0. Again, the next game is postponed. It's Southampton versus Brentford. Now Southampton, they drew their last game 2-2 with Palace, and they've drawn 3 of their last 4 games. Brentford, they beat Watford 2-1 in their last game. And I think, to be honest, this is going to be another low-scoring draw. A lot of Southampton games tend to be, so I'm going to go 1-1. On to another game that's been postponed. It's Watford versus Palace. Probably good for Watford that this has been postponed because they're really struggling at the moment. They've lost 4 in a row. Now Palace, they've got 4 points out of their last 2 games. Obviously a win and then the 2-2 draw with Southampton. I think again this favours Palace, but maybe when it's played it won't. But I'm going to go Palace to win 2-1. The last postponed game for Saturday is West Ham versus Norwich. Now West Ham, they lost their last game 2-0 to Arsenal. Before that they drew 0-0 with Burnley. So their goal scoring has dried up a bit. And Antonio, I think he's scored about 1 in his last 13 in all competitions. Something along those lines. Or maybe it's 1 in 13 in the league, I can't remember, but I know the goals have really dried up for him and it's impacting West Ham a bit. Luckily for them, they're playing a Norwich side that after Dean Smith had a little bit of a good start, looked like a resurgence. They've lost 3 in a row, scoring none and conceding 6 in those 3 games. So I think West Ham obviously have the quality to win this, and even if they're not at their top goal scoring form, I think they'll still edge it. So I'm going to go West Ham to win 1-0. And finally, onto a game that hasn't been postponed. It's Leeds versus Arsenal. Now Leeds, they've lost 2 in a row, and the last game was that 7-0 loss to Man City. That can have a very bad effect on a team. If you look at the Championship and look at Blackburn, it can have a very good effect on a team. But I'm not sure this Leeds team it will affect well because they're already quite thin, a lot of players missing. They just need to get some players back. Bielsa likes working with a small squad. However, it might be a bit too small, and in January they'll need some reinforcements. Now Arsenal, they've won 2 in a row, back to winning ways, and they've scored 5 and conceded none across those 2 games. So I'm going to go Arsenal to win 2-0. On to Sunday now, and the only game as of yet that has been postponed on Sunday, Everton versus Leicester. Now Everton, they got a brilliant point. Very young Everton team went out. They were missing Allen, Richarlison, obviously Calvert-Lewin still out, Damari Gray, Andros Townsend, none of them playing, and they managed to get a 1-1 draw with Chelsea. Brilliant result. Sort of shows you how Chelsea's form is at the moment, slipping up a bit, but that's great for Everton. Leicester, they won 4-0 their last game against Newcastle, and it was the first game this season where I've really thought, okay, Leicester might be able to build from this and have a bit of a push towards the top. And I think it's going to happen, to be honest. Maddison, Daka, Tielemans, all of them played very well in that match, as did the whole team. But I'm going to go Leicester to win this 3-1. On to Newcastle versus Man City. And these two teams are in completely opposite veins of form. Now Newcastle, they've lost 2 in a row. Their last one was 3-1 against Liverpool. Man City have won 7 in a row. Yes, they're going on one of those runs again that they normally do in the league, and it normally always wins them the league. But their last game was an absolute demolition job, 7-0 against Leeds. And they've just got so many interchangeable players. One thing I love about Man City, they're so good to watch because they've got so many creative attackers. They don't really have a striker. Jesus is there, more used on the right wing. And they use a lot of wingers and attacking mids. And it does end up being very good to watch because they all swap positions and they're all fluid and it just works. It's great to watch when they're in good form. And I don't see Newcastle doing any damage to this Man City team. So I'm going to go Man City to win 4-0. On to Wolves versus Chelsea. And this is a very interesting matchup because Wolves, they won their last game 1-0 against Brighton. In their last 6, they've won 2 of them 1-0, lost 2 of them 1-0, and the other 2 have been 0-0. So in 6 games, they've scored 2, conceded 2. So they're very good defensively, not very clinical up front. And I think this game will be a banana skin for Chelsea, to be honest. I know they're slipping up a bit anyway, but Wolves are very good defensively, and they proved that. The 2 1-0 losses that they did have were against Man City and Liverpool. So, yeah, Wolves can really defend. Chelsea normally can, but they haven't kept a clean sheet for a while. And Chelsea, their last game was obviously that 1-1 draw with a very young, inexperienced Everton side. So I'm going to go for the same here, 1-1. And finally, another very interesting battle, Spurs versus Liverpool. Now Spurs, they've probably been the worst team with COVID so far. They've been hit the hardest. 3 games have been postponed, although I think 1 might have been due to weather against Burnley, if I'm correct. So, yeah, they're not anywhere near anyone else. They've only played 14 games compared to a lot of other teams, 17. And it's actually worked out all right for them because a few teams above them, apart from Man City and Liverpool, have been slipping up recently. So if Spurs can win some games in hand, they'll be right in the thick of the top 4, really, and that battle for that 4th spot. Now, Conte has done a good job since he's been there. Only managed 4 Premier League games so far, considering he's been there for over a month. That's quite surprising, but again, a lot of postponements. And in those 4, he's drew his first one, and then he won the 3 after that. And in that space of time, they've conceded 1 goal. So, very good defensively, what you expect from a Conte team. And it might prove a bit difficult for this Liverpool side. Now, Liverpool, they've won 6 in a row. They're the only ones really keeping up with Man City at the moment. But I see, again, like the Chelsea Wolves one, I see a banana skin here. Because Spurs, good defensively. Liverpool, over recent weeks, they haven't been as clinical as they usually are. Obviously, they beat Newcastle 3-1. But again, they went behind. Van Dijk's probably out of this one because he was out of the last one with COVID. So, I don't know. I just see Spurs being able to get something out of this. So I'm going to go, final game, Spurs-Liverpool, 1-1. And that's it for my predictions for this weekend's fixtures. Only 5 of these games are actually taking place, and that's as of recording. Maybe more will be postponed. And I see by next weekend, I reckon the league will probably be cancelled because too many teams are going to be falling behind with games and fixture congestion. And yeah, I just think that they're going to have to postpone the league for a couple of weeks. But these have been my predictions, and yeah, there's only a few that are actually playing, but at least we've still got a bit of football. Let me know in the comments what you agree with, what you disagree with, and put your predictions down in the comments too. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Premier League content.